That was a tough time. That was a dark time because, not just the industry shutting down, but just creatively, you're like, I always want to kind of be working on something. And then when it seems like at that time, you didn't know when it was going to be over.
Having found yourself without purpose during the pandemic, have you been in that situation since?
I think there's a constant battle with purposelessness, especially as a creative, because, if you finish a project, well, okay, it's done, but then what do you do next? So then you're in this place of like, okay, well, what's the next thing? And that can be a place of purposelessness. And if you continue, like if you're in the middle of a project and you hit a roadblock or writer's block or whatever, that can also feel like suddenly you're spinning, So I think I have hit that at different points. It's definitely a tough place to be, but I think the thing as a creative person, as a writer, as a filmmaker, you just kind of have to find a way to put one foot in front of the other. And it's very basic advice, but you just have to keep going. And I've found that always the inspiration will come, the roadblock will disappear if you just kind of keep moving forward. And sometimes you get caught up in like, okay, is this the best? Is this the best it can be? But something I've heard before is done is better than perfect. And so I think that's kind of my philosophy is, okay, I need to get this done, and it probably won't be perfect, but at least it'll be done. And if you're a creative person, creating is what you do. And if you don't create stuff, then you're not fulfilling your purpose. And so you have to create. You have to do something. So just do something, even if it's, I don't know, learn to paint. Like do something maybe even different than what you normally do. Like if you're a filmmaker, go try your hand at music or something, just to maybe break out of some of those molds. Because I find sometimes like thinking about something else will then help you kind of break through on whatever you're stuck on.
Is having meaning in your life, in what you're working on, very important to you?
Absolutely. I think meaning is something every person needs. I mean, you need to feel like your life means something. And I think as a creative, like you want to feel like your life means something to other people because you have an audience. And that's a constant battle, because if you're a creative with no audience, you can really feel kind of like your life is pointless. I mean, I've been there. I've felt that no one's watching, right? You put something on YouTube or you make a short film and no film festivals, you get a rejection from every film festival you put it in, right? And suddenly you feel like, am I even a filmmaker? Like, am I even good at this? Like, does it even matter what I do if no one's gonna watch it? And that is a constant battle to be like, okay, that one didn't work. I'm gonna do the next one and do it better and learn from that experience.
Right. And then I think there reaches like the saturation point where you want to just experience things in real life, because we've been trained to just be making these shorts and all this stuff that it gets to a point where like I actually want to just do something that's not about getting views. And I don't know. I know we're all trained that way right now, but just the gratification of that is I get it. If you make a film, you want people to see it. It's not because you just want it to sit on a hard drive.
Well, I think that's kind of what my last film, Cipher, was kind of about. Was I just kind of reached this point where I just had to make something, and it almost wasn't about the audience. I just had to I kind of made it for me because I wanted to make something and get it over the finish line. And my whole life at that point felt like I'd been working towards making a feature film, but I hadn't made a feature film yet. And that was a really difficult thing to be like, okay, I'm a filmmaker, but I haven't really made a full-length film.
How many shorts had you made prior to that?
I'd done several. I mean, at least 12 or so. I mean, I'd done a lot of short films, but none of them had really taken off. So I think as you make stuff, and especially making it in a short form, there's only so much a short film can do for you as a filmmaker. I definitely have seen it unlock some things for other people. But if you have a certain sensibility as a filmmaker, or if you're, making, like if you'd like to tell a certain kind of story, that doesn't always mean you're going to be a festival darling, right? There are certain projects do better at festivals than others. I think that's just a reality that we all have to live with. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that your project can't find an audience. And so you have to go out and find them a different way. And I think that's something I've kind of been learning as a filmmaker lately, is like you just have to go find your audience where they are. And they're not always at the film festival. They're not always in the theater, right? Sometimes I've seen people, they just put their entire film up on YouTube and they get 1 million views, right? Because that's where the audience is for that film. And so you have to go find them and be willing to maybe do something different than you would normally do, because all the normal ways, the old ways of distribution, I mean, all of that is just going out the window. I mean, there's so many different ways to get your film out into the world. And so I think you need to be flexible with that kind of stuff when you get to that point.
You say you keep looking for ways to tell the same story, one of hope, to overcome odds. Why does this type of story appeal to you? Is this something that's happened with your own life?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I think I got made fun at school. I think I was always kind of a jokester. I always tried to be like the class clown, but I also wasn't that funny at the time, and so I think I got into these situations where my mouth kind of got me in trouble, and people, I think bullies would kind of be attracted to that. And so, you kind of, especially when you're really talkative, you kind of draw a lot of attention, right? And so I found myself, especially like in elementary school, just feeling like every day at school was I'm like going into battle, because if I don't say things the right way, I'm gonna get criticized or bullied. But I also really couldn't help sometimes just like letting my thoughts, come out freely, right? And in some ways, that was an awful experience, but in other ways, I think it taught me that I think everyone gets bullied in a different way. Like everyone has an experience in their life where they feel attacked or made to feel less than, and it doesn't always look the same. Like the homeless people that I've interviewed. I mean, they feel completely rejected by society, right? Actors I've met who are constantly in this barrage of like going to auditions and just being, please pick me, and then they never get picked, right? And this is your dream, like this, you have this dream to be, in a movie and to act or to make films like me, and no one is ever saying yes. No one's ever saying, oh, it's your shot, kid, come on. And so you end up I think a lot of people end up feeling dissatisfied with their life. And it can be as small as like we've talked about before, like being dissatisfied with your job or whatever. And that can feel small, but like if it's your life, if it's your experience, then it doesn't feel that small. It's like it's what you know. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And so I think what I really want to show people is like that we're all kind of the same. We all have struggles in different ways. And even if you're rich, money doesn't solve all your problems. And I've met a lot of rich people who are really unhappy and struggling with identity and self and what it means to even have purpose or meaning, right? And so, I think sometimes we look at people and say, okay, well, they've got everything, so they're happy. And then you look at someone who doesn't have anything, you're like, well, that person's obviously miserable. And I've found often that sometimes is reversed, that people who have very little actually, have had to really take stock of what's important in life. Like Terry and Ivy, they live they live underneath the tunnels of Vegas, and yet they have each other. And that is more than a lot of people have who live in mansions.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I was just flashing back to one moment in your documentary, and that was where they were protecting their food. They wanted to make sure that the food was always protected because they didn't want someone to come and steal it, I think it was.
And the rats would get it.
Okay, in the cooler, right, okay. So,
and that's a terrible circumstance to be in, and yet they found a way to do it, and they were being resilient. And obviously, in their situation, we wouldn't want to be in that situation, and they wanted out of it. But I think that that kind of thing, it's like they're finding a way to sort of deal with it and live, even though it seems like, I mean, anyone looking at that situation would say like that's no way to live, right? And yet, I still found sometimes in talking with them that they would kind of laugh or be happy, or there wasn't this constant like hopelessness that you would expect maybe in that situation. Now that doesn't mean that they want to stay there or that they should stay there. It just means that you can be surprised sometimes at how people can deal with some of these circumstances.
Right. We'll leave it at that. We'll just move on. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you. I don't want to pry too much, but
No, that's everyone's had that experience, and I think even sometimes like with feeling bullied, like I remember I got into this fight with this guy at school, and because I felt like he was picking on me, and so I was like, I'm going to stand up to him, right, and do this, and then we got in trouble. We both had to go to the principal's office, and I wrote this whole thing. I was like telling the principal, like, I'm tired of being bullied. I'm tired of being picked on. I'm tired of, And when he came in, we had to write out what happened, and then he would read it, and then he'd talk to us about it. And so I wrote out my whole perspective on it. And when I came in, he said, hey, look, man, I get this, but everyone that comes in this office says they've been bullied. And so, he had compassion, but I think he also pointed out that like there's a perspective here where like you can, bullying is something that shouldn't happen to anyone, but it kind of happens to everyone. So, I think you have to figure out a way to respond to it with positivity and not get angry and want to punch every person, because that anger and violence is not the right response, right? So.
Sure. But there is a point where the hunted then becomes the hunter, and people react weird about that. A lot of times kids in school that have been bullied, they treat that kid as the problem. And I've heard of this, and I saw it with other kids at my school, whatever. It's because it's just easier to just the problem is here. Let's just put this person over here.
Right,
so that's so sometimes the hunted becomes the hunter, and then people flip out because it's like, well, no, what's your place? Your place is being picked on.
Yeah. Well, and who gets in trouble? The person who throws the second punch. And that's something that I think is hard to. It never feels fair, and I think it's hard when you feel like something is unfair and you want to make it fair, right? And I think that's with my filmmaking. I want to explore that at the very least and see where, because it's I feel like it's never as clear as it always seems. Like there's in life there are sometimes you are the bully and sometimes you're the bullied. I mean, I definitely feel like that has been true for me at different times, and so you have to, I think. Sometimes it reaches a point where it's so unfair that person just needs like almost divine intervention or something, and whatever that looks like, I don't know every situation, right? So like that has, sometimes it's case by case, but with my experience, I think I had to learn to look at it from a different perspective so that I could not have a victim mentality, and that helped me actually face it, and then eventually it stopped. And some of that was just growing up and getting out of the situation, and some of it was just not taking every single thing as an attack. Because I think I reached a point where every time someone had a small joke or a criticism, like I took that as like a personal attack to my entire person, and that's something where you just, until you can, take some things a little bit lightly, you kind of can end up really being offended all the time or hurt all the time, maybe is a better way to say it.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.